So every single time Black Lives Matter pops back into a narrative, whether it be a local, state, or national due to a police killing of a black or brown person or ongoing civil rights issues, invariably what happens is all the people who carry water for the thin blue line and carry water for the low-key racist relatives and carry water for the white nationalists, they all come crawling out of the woodwork with their tropes. Number one on the trope list, what about black on black crime? This trope is so overplayed, Donald Trump tweeted about it back in 2015 when Black Lives Matter first started following the killings of Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice. There were a whole bunch of national profile, high profile killings. So of course, Trump jumped on that and he threw this out. Now this meme that he tweeted out is 100% false. The source, the Crime Statistics Bureau of San Francisco, doesn't actually exist, and none of those stats are accurate. Now, of course, that doesn't keep Donald Trump or your low-key racist uncle who has questionable thought patterns, likes to mail out to people all the time. This is what we call trash. So what I thought I would do is I thought we would actually take a look at what black on black crime is, and then examine whether the converse of black on black crime would be true, and see what about white on white crime, and is that a scourge as well? And should we be talking about it? So let's just move past this horrible statistic. I actually found this local video from the Memphis area that a local news team had done.
Well, I spoke to two teachers and students about the term black on black crime. They say it's recently been used as a tool against the Black Lives Matter movement. Well, it's a phrase frequently tossed about, black on black crime. So we asked everyday people what they think about the term.
So it kind of has like a negative undertone because of what they constantly portray of us.
The term black on black crime is really loaded because it infers that black people are the only race that have crime with each other.
Patricia Lockhart, a Shelby County school teacher, says the phrase black on black crime is just a rebuttal used by those not equipped with the facts. She says facts will show blacks rob blacks, Latinos rob Latinos, Asians rob Asians, and whites rob whites, and on and on. But we can only hear about one, making it seem as if the black community itself is not concerned about crime. And she says they are deflecting from the real issue of why people are protesting police brutality against blacks.
So, a lot of good points that got brought up. It seems that a lot of people are hip to it. Unfortunately, the overwhelming number of people who are not hip to it are the ones who also drive their cars into protesters and violate the U.S. flag code by rocking adulterated flags with blue stripes on them. It's problematic. So how bad is black on black crime, and why is it a thing? It's good that you asked. I happen to have an answer to that one, actually. I started looking way back. How long has black on black crime been a thing? And is white on white crime a thing? So I went all the way back. This was a paper dated from 1985 from the Office of Justice Programs, which showed the data from the 1981 National Victimization Survey, and this is violent crime victimization, reveals that more whites are victimized by whites, 77%, than by blacks, 17%, and more blacks are victimized by blacks, also 77%, than by whites, 14.4%. Although violent crime by white offenders is apparently strongly intra-racial, meaning white on white crime, in that 96.9% of the white offenders choose white victims. Violent crime by black offenders is apparently predominantly interracial, with 55.2% of the black offenders choosing white victims. So this was back in the 1980s, okay? So as far back as 1981, we're talking almost 40 years ago. Even 40 years ago, the trope of black on black crime would have been a shitty trope, because apparently 77% of all white people in 1981 who were violently attacked or murdered were attacked by other white people. I wonder how this plays out throughout the years. Let's see. This was from Matty Iglesias. He wrote this back in 2015. Blacks represent 13% of the population but commit 50% of the murders. 90% of black victims are murdered by other blacks, writes Times Joe Klein, calling for, quote, provocative thinking on race in America. The facts suggest that history is not enough to explain the social disaster. Yet the disturbing truth, according to the FBI's most recent homicide statistics, is that the United States is in the wake of an epidemic of white-on-white crime. Back in 2011, the most recent year for which data is available, a staggering 83% of white murder victims were killed by fellow Caucasians. 83%! And we make up like more than half of the country. I don't know. I'm starting to think there might be a scourge of white-on-white crime that we have to talk about here. I mean, I keep hearing black-on-black crime, and like people shout it from the mountaintops like it's like a serious-ass problem. But if 83% of white people are killing other white people, I mean, where are the protests? Why are we not out in the streets protesting white-on-white crime? This is obviously a problem. Now, this isn't to say that white people are inherently prone to violence. Most whites, obviously, manage to get through life without murdering anyone. And there are many countries full of white people, Norway, Iceland, France, Denmark, New Zealand, and the UK, where white people murder each other at a much lower rate than you see here in the United States. So it turns out that both white-on-white and black-on-black crime are more problematic in America than in other countries where they have an actual civil society. I know. Crazy thoughts, right? On the other hand, although people see less criminal behavior as a symptom of poverty, the quantity of murder committed by white people, specifically in the United States, casts some doubt on this. Per capita GDP is considerably higher here than in France, and the white population in America is considerably richer than the national average. And yet, we still have more white murders. To understand the level of cultural pathology at work here, it's important to understand that 36% of those killed by whites are women, a far higher share than you see with black murderers. Why are we not talking about this scourge? Is this not a social issue? I mean, everybody wants to go out and scream about black-on-black crime. Why are we not talking about the fact that 83% of all white people are killed by other white people, and more than a third of them are women? No? Nothing? Okay, let's keep rolling. Hey, this is from 2016, looking back at 2011 crime statistics. Let's see. Most of the conversation surrounding crimes involves black people who selfishly take all the credit for being criminals. Blacks are notorious for being called thugs and gangsters, but the real MVPs, most violent people, are whites. Every day in cities across the country, people die at the hands of white people. What's more, they're killing their own kind, according to the U.S. Department of Justice statistics. 84% of white people killed every year are killed by other white people. That was as of 2011. Let's keep moving. Hey, FBI expanded homicide statistics. There you go. Department of Justice. This is from 2018, just 2 years ago. More than 3,300 white people were killed. The race of the offender who killed them, more than almost 2,700 were white. In case you want to do the math, and I've already done it, 81%. Just saying. White people. Come here, look. I'm white people, right? Let's have a little talk. White people are white people. Stop killing white people. Y'all have a problem. You're literally addicted to killing white people. This is pathological. From the Ohioan, Cleveland.com. Why aren't we talking about black-on-black crime? Here we go. When someone commits an act of terrorism in the United States, which rightfully leads to anger and sadness, no one asks, well, what about how many Americans kill other Americans each year? Because that'd be crazy now, wouldn't it? It's a good point. I mean, after 9/11, when, close to 2,000 people died when the towers came down? Did anybody turn around and go, but wait, Americans killed 14,000 Americans this year. Why don't we talk about American-on-American crime? I don't recall seeing that sentence written down, typed out, or read off a webpage anywhere. Not once. Crazy how that sounds, huh? But by all means, let's talk about black on black crime. You've probably heard a statistic like this before. The majority of black people murdered are killed by other black people. That's true, but also misleading. The overwhelming majority of white murder victims each year are killed by white assailants, as we've just read, anywhere from 80 to 84%, depending upon the year. So when's the last time you heard the term white on white crime? Other than me saying it 19 times since I started this tape, you probably haven't. As shocking as it may be for some to hear, people generally commit crimes against people they know or live near. If you want to have a real discussion about crime, let's talk about the factors that contribute to it happening in the first place. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm starting to get the idea that the majority of crime is based on where you live, the people around you, and the people in your life. In which case, it would seem that about 80% of people are only hanging out with people of the same color as themselves. This is also problematic. Remind me one day to do a video about redlining and explain to you why ghettos and hoods exist in their current form. If you don't know, it's going to be a real painful video for you, I promise. Now, to the clincher. The problem that we see anytime you want to discuss crime reporting, and crime statistics, the problem with any of these crime statistics is that they're solely based on who the police stop, who the police search, who the police arrest, who the district attorneys charge, who the district attorneys take to trial, who judges convict, and then how they're sentenced. Okay? Crime stats only report crimes, and crimes are only reported by police. So you have to know that there's crimes out there that are committed that either never get reported or don't end up in a stat sheet. So, policing around the country started a thing called Stop and Frisk based on a pilot program that was launched in New York. Stop and Frisk basically meant you could just walk up to somebody if you were a cop and go, "Hey, you look suspicious. Put your hands on the wall. I'm going to search your pockets." And they basically made criminals out of people because they had to keep the prison population high, because back in 2015, 2016, even 2011, when this started, was when prisons were flipping over to private prisons and they were selling slave labor to corporations for 15 cents an hour. And of course, private prisons have contracts with the cities and states that they are in, where those cities and states guarantee that prisons will be maintained at a 90, 92%, or 95% occupancy rate. Ergo, the police literally go out and make criminals out of people. How bad is it? Let's see. Between 2023 and 2013, over 100,000 stops were made, with 685,000 people being stopped at the height of the program in 2011. Police stopped and frisked almost 700,000 people in New York City in 1 year. The program became the subject of a racial profiling controversy. 90% of those stopped were African American or Latino, mostly aged 15 to 24. 70% of those stopped were later found to be innocent. By contrast, 54% of the population in New York City was African American or Latino, but 75% of individuals arrested overall were of those two racial groups. So here you go, your last little statistic of the day. How rarely do white people get profiled? How rarely do they get stopped and frisked? How much lower is their chance of being randomly stopped by the police and turned into a criminal? Here you go. These are the stop and frisk numbers by the ACLU in New York based on NYPD reporting. This is the number of stop and frisk stops per year. Now that the prisons are back up to 100%, they don't have to stop and frisk so much. But here you go. In 2019, 9% of people who were stopped and frisked were white. 2018, 10%. 2017, 8%. 2016, 10%. So, ladies and gentlemen, black on black crime, while it is technically real, is a fucking marketing myth. And it's established to make you believe that black people are just, they're animals and they're savages and they possibly can't police themselves. Look at them. They can't stop killing each other. They just love killing each other. It's what they do. Okay, so every time you hear that, you have to know that that crap is a gigantic dog whistle. And once again, if you're listening to that dog whistle and you're thinking it's really sounding loud and annoying, it's supposed to be, just like all the idiots screaming out dog whistles all day. So please don't believe the hype, everybody, because only 9% of white people are stopped and frisked, which is why the number of white criminals is so much lower. Yet 80 to 85% of all white people every single year who are murdered by other white people. Don't believe the hype, everybody. Anytime you hear about black on black crime, ask about the scourge of white on white crime and when we're going to do something about that shit, okay? Thanks, gang.